Sometime in November of that year, Lauren Bacall was introduced to an editor of Harper's Bazaar. He thought that she might have potential as a photographic model and set up an appointment with the fashion editor, Diana Vreeland.
An extraordinary-looking woman sat at a desk covered with papers, photographs, boxes with bits and pieces of jewelry, scarves. She stood up, shook my hand, looked at my face, with her hand under my chin, turned it to the right and to the left. She said, "We're having a sitting. Could you come to the studio? It won't take long." I said, of course I could. I was scared to death. The efficiency and matter-of-factness of the whole magazine operation, and particularly of Mrs. Vreeland, were intimidating. I knew I felt like a gawk, never thought I was a beauty, so I never really expected too much. I just hoped to see what her camera could catch. A couple of days later, Diana Vreeland called and asked if I could come in the next Tuesday to pose. Tuesday came at last, and off I went. Mrs. Vreeland put a suit on me, told me which makeup to use, but very little. "Betty, I don't want to change your look," whatever that was. When all was done, she put a scarf round my neck, knew just how to tie it, a little off-center, and I was ready for my first sitting for Harper's Bazaar. From that day on, my life would take a different course.
Harper's Bazaar published photographs of Lauren Bacall in several issues that year and featured her on their March cover. As a result, numerous inquiries about the young actress flooded their offices, some from the representatives of David O. Selznick and Columbia Pictures.
There was another inquiry. Howard Hawks wanted to know about me. One day in Uncle Jack's office at Look, we sat down and talked it all out. I had never heard of Howard Hawks. Jack had, and listed his movies. He had directed some really outstanding films, including 20th Century, Only Angels Have Wings, Air Force, Bringing Up Baby. Charles K. Feldman, his agent and partner, wanted to know if I would come to California to make a screen test. It would mean staying in California for 6 to 8 weeks. If they liked the test, Hawks would sign me to a personal contract. Jack discussed it fully with Mother, explaining in as much detail as he could. We all agreed. Take the chance with Hawks. It would mean going off alone, 3,000 miles away, to a place where I knew no one. But it wouldn't be for long, and I'd be working. Charles Feldman sent a typewritten agreement to Jack. He had signed it on behalf of Howard Hawks and himself. It stated that they would have the option to sign me to a contract if they so wished after the test was made. Having made the investment of money and time, they were entitled to that. I signed. The deed was irrevocable. No turning back. My family gave me a farewell dinner. 4 or 5 years back, Mother had met a very nice and attractive man named Lee Goldberg. He and Mother liked each other a lot. She never confided her hopes and dreams to me, but she was happier than I had ever seen her after she met him. Lee came to my farewell dinner along with Grandma and the uncles and aunts. It was a happy night and an emotional one. They all had faith in me. They all loved me. They were sending me on my way with jokes, joy, confidence, and a few tears. I was very woman of the world in my bedroom on the 20th Century that 3rd day of April, 1943. 3 days to get used to the possibility of a whole new life. The minute I got off the train, I knew I was in new country. There was an immediate air of informality. It was like a resort. Did anyone work here? Charles Feldman made it very, very easy. After I told him about the trip, he said he'd reserved a room for me in a hotel in Westwood Village and set up a lunch with Howard for tomorrow. On April 7th, I was driven to Charlie's office. We were to meet Howard Hawks at the Brown Derby on Wilshire Boulevard, a block from the office. I was very nervous, and Charlie knew it. At the Brown Derby, we were led to our booth. After a few minutes, a very tall man with close-cropped gray hair and broad shoulders came in. Charlie said, "There's Howard." He came over, and we were introduced. I was shaking. He was very imposing, spoke very deliberately, asked me a few questions, said he'd liked the pictures in Bazaar, wanted to know if I'd had any acting experience at all. I told him very little, told him what it was. He told me what he wanted to do, a simple test. He'd pick the scenes. He couldn't have been nicer. The next 10 days were endless. On the phone at least once a day to Charlie, so frustrated, postponement after postponement. I had seen Howard a couple of times more. I read scenes for him. He took me to lunch and told me about his directing experiences with various actresses. He was mesmerizing, and I believed every story he told me. Once he made some remark about a Jew, and I turned cold. I'm sure I paled visibly, but he didn't seem to notice. Oh, no, don't let him be anti-Semitic. God, don't let me come all this way and have it blow up in my face. It just couldn't happen now. A letter dated May 3rd to my mother. My test was more fun, Mommy, and I loved every minute of it. I had a dressing room and a stand-in, a hairdresser and a makeup man, the best photographer at Warner Brothers, an 11-page scene, and Howard as a director. I had what every star has. Everyone told me that what I had only 1 out of 10,000 girls gets. So there you have it. Saw the test on Wednesday. It's the weirdest feeling to see yourself move around and talk. I didn't think it was exceptionally good. I didn't look beautiful. But Howard and Charlie said it was excellent. Anyway, I'm the first girl Howard has ever signed personally, and Charlie says I'm his protege. After the test was over, I was full of bravado, name-dropping like crazy and very blasé. And how quickly I accepted Charlie and Howard as my mentors. How quickly I shifted gears from East Coast to West.
By the end of May, the final shift was made. Lauren Bacall arranged for her mother to join her on the West Coast.
Mother and I settled in very nicely, happy in our new apartment on Reeves Drive. We became instant Californians except for the waiting around. I never could get used to that. There were many lunches and much time spent with Howard. He wanted me to drive into the hills, find some quiet spot, and read aloud. He felt it most important to keep the voice in a low register. Mine started off low, but what Howard didn't like and explained to me was, if you notice, Betty, when a woman gets excited or emotional, she tends to raise her voice.